Folks at home, welcome back to the 5-acre pond build, and if you missed the first parts of this series, I'll put links down in the description below. And over the last few weeks, we brought in 850 dump truck loads of clay, and the majority of that was used to line the entire pond with a 2-foot clay blanket. And we got all of that wrapped up last week, so now we're on to the fun part of the pond build, and that's adding all the structure, like rocks, the oak throne, and basically turning this pond into a theme park for fish. But before we start adding the structure, we have a couple things left on the list. One of them is getting the vertical standpipe installed, and the other is hauling the last little bit of dirt that we excavated out and putting it on the back side of the dam. So this week the guys brought in this cool tractor that's got 3 different attachments. It's got the grappler, the forks, and the bucket. And the thing I like about it is it's got some speed. So he's using that to move the last bit of that dirt, and then he's putting the final grade on the dam, and it's that 4-to-1 slope to make it easier to cut the grass. And speaking of that, we'll be seeding the entire pond area in this video as well. So while we're waiting on the drain pipe to come in, it is time to finally set the oak throne. That's got to be one of my favorite parts of this whole project. The root system out of that 150-year-old oak tree is going to live on and continue to provide structure and a good place to hide for thousands of bait fish. And wouldn't you know it, it starts raining right whenever we start moving the oak throne. It's kind of like Mother Nature's way of saying goodbye to the old oak. So I'm getting them to place it near the dock and the island, and the main reason for that is we're going to run power to it. I want to put some underwater lights as well as an underwater camera, and I hope to stream that 24/7. We'll talk more about that later. And if you can see that white PVC pipe sticking up in the background, that's where the dock is going to start, and we're probably going to be installing that in the next week or two. Check it out, folks, the iron throne is finally in place. So we drug it in from over there, and it's probably my favorite piece of the whole project. The bait fish are going to absolutely love this thing. Look at how many places they can get up in there and hide, and bass won't be able to touch them. So the top of this is going to be about 2 feet below the surface of the water. Imagine running a little topwater lure right across the top of this. You know there's going to be bait piled in this thing year round, and the bass are probably just going to be patrolling the edge of it because there are a million places for bait to hide. So one other thing, I got a guy making me some custom signs. We're going to put a sign up out of the top of that says the Oak Throne. We're going to do an Alcatraz Island wooden sign over there, one for Clyde's Cove, and probably another one for Bonnie's Bayou. So leave a comment down below if you got an idea for another good wooden sign. Alright, the vertical standpipe arrived, and this is definitely one of those big milestones in the project because once you install this, you can close the valve and that'll seal the pond off, and now every time we get some rain, it's going to start filling the pond up. So the first thing we got to do is get this pipe in place so that he can weld it on. So we use a couple different tractors to get everything leveled out, and then he starts welding it together. Alright, we just got the vertical drain pipe installed. He welded the back of that on, and the way this works is the bottom of that has a big plate on it and the bottom's capped off. So the water level is going to be set right there at the top of that. Whenever we have a storm and get a lot of rain, it's going to go down through there and through that pipe through the back side of the dam. And this portion of it is a valve, and that valve is open and closed by that stem right there and the little wheel on top. So if I wanted to go up there on a ladder right now and twist that around, this valve would rise up and it would open up that pipe. So if water came in through the pond, it could go directly into that pipe and outside the back of the dam. Now the reason I wanted to go with this type of standpipe is because the exact situation we're in right now, we get so many hurricanes and tropical storms. Just say if we were at full pool and we got a hurricane coming right towards us, I could go up there, twist that, open the valve up, and it would drop the water level however much I wanted to. So just say if I wanted to drop it a couple feet down, that way when the hurricane came, you'd have a couple feet of water that had to rise in the pond before you hit the drain pipe, and then after it started flooding to where that 30-inch pipe couldn't handle all the rain, then it would go out of our emergency spillway, which is down there. And when he installed it, the last thing he had to do was weld the existing pipe to the vertical pipe. Did a good job with that, so we're all set. So we're getting 2 truckloads of pea gravel delivered, and the first one has just arrived. And I don't know why, but there's something satisfying to me about watching thousands of rocks pile out of a truck. But this is really important for the bluegills and the bait fish that are in the pond. In order for you to have a successful pond, you need those brim and bluegills to spawn each year and reproduce. And their favorite thing to make their spawning bed in is 100% pea gravel. And sometimes sand, so we may mix a little sand in here with the gravel. Boy, the bluegills are gonna be in heaven. That is a lot of gravel, and we're getting another load of that. That's what they're gonna use to spawn in, I guarantee you, because they did it in my backyard pond. All right, folks, time to do some planting. We got our fertilizer, 5 sacks of brown top millet. We got some bahia grass. But the first thing we're going to plant is Alcatraz Island. And I'm going to go in with Bermuda grass because it doesn't grow vertical stems like the bahia grass does, and I don't want to be out there cutting it every week. But I got just 10 pounds of this because a 50-pound sack of this is $300 because look at how many seeds there are. They're tiny. So up here getting ready to put the seed out, and look at this. Some animal is already using the island. I don't know if that's a squirrel tail or what. It kind of looks like something got it because there's hair everywhere. But Alcatraz Island is already being used. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that's squirrel. Maybe the bobcat got a squirrel or something, not sure. Doesn't look like Foxy, so we're good. Now I can tell you one thing, if you broadcast seed around here, you better get it covered up quick because the birds are on attack mode. Now I picked out 2 of my favorite pieces that were left from the old oak tree, and we're gonna put them right here in Clyde's Cove. And if you guys remember, when the oak tree was still standing, there was a tree stand in it, and we would climb up and sit right there on this portion of the oak, and you can see that resurrection fern is still alive on the oak. But look at all of the different patterns that are in this wood. Some of them are circular patterns that just represent years and years of growth. My favorite 2 pieces that are left are going in Clyde's Cove. And you can't tell by the video, but these 2 pieces were extremely heavy. 3 guys tried to lift them, we couldn't even budge it. So we had to get the tractor over with a chain to get them stood up. Ooh, Clyde's Cove is coming along nicely. Hopefully he's going to be as excited as I am about it. So the next thing we're going to do is use the grapple on the tractor and create some big wood piles. And so here's my thought process about putting structure in the pond. So just being a lifetime fisherman, I know that you don't want to have too much structure down on the bottom because it can make it extremely hard to fish. But at the same time, after talking with these biologists, if you don't put enough structure in there to keep all your bait fish protected, then the bass are going to go through and literally eat all of the forage in the pond in a short amount of time. It's like they could eat it all and get fat really quick, but then be starving over the next couple of months. So it's very important to put some structure in for the fish to hide. So I wanted to do a little experiment with Moby. You guys have watched him feed in the aquarium dozens of times, and normally it takes him, 2 to 3 minutes to go through and eat all of the shiners in the tank. Sometimes he'll have to bob and weave through the fake structure, and you can tell it definitely slows him down sometimes. But what I wanted to do is take all of the structure out of the aquarium and see how quickly he ate the shiners. And take a look at this, guys. I think he got him a little bit faster than I was expecting. With Moby's aggression, he normally eats fast, but I think he set a record pace for eating the shiners in this one. That's crazy, but it shows you how important the structure is. So now I want to talk about the different types of structures. So back in my day, we would go sink brush piles and tops in different ponds and lakes, and you could definitely tell it attracted the fish. But as a fisherman, there's 2 different types of structure you could put in. One of them is something like a willow tree that has limbs on it that are easily breakable. And so if you cast out there and you get hung, you just pull really hard and it snaps off. The problem with willow trees is they may only last a year to 2 years before they deteriorate in the water. Now the other type of structure is something like a hardwood, like this oak tree, that if you put it down there, it's really dense and heavy and it may stay there for 10 years underwater. The problem with it is if you get hung up on it, you probably lost your crankbait or whatever it is you're using, because you're not going to be able to make that heavy piece of wood budge. So in this pond, I want to do a balance. I want to do about 50% hardwoods and about 50% of the softer wood that's more brushy and will attract more bait. So I really like what the guys did with one of the first hardwood piles, and they made a big circle out of it, almost like a bullseye. And until this wood gets completely waterlogged, it's going to try to float up to the surface. So we're using cinder blocks, and in the deeper water we're tying it down with a 1/2-inch rope, and in the shallower water we're going to use metal wire. And the reason for that is these brush piles in the deeper water are more for the fish, And the thoughts behind this are that the rope will be a lot more likely to snag a treble hook and you'll be losing your bait, so we're putting all the rope in the deeper water on the structure that's more designed just for the bait to hide out. And in the shallow brush piles that we're going to be fishing a lot, by using that metal wire, we shouldn't get hung up nearly as much. So next up we're going to be spreading that pea gravel, and you really just need to spread it in shallow spawning areas for those bluegills that are typically going to be less than 5 feet deep. And we're just going to go through with 2 to 3 inch layers on these different spawning flats. And one of the main areas I want to do is the shallow end of the island. I feel like that'll be a key area where a lot of the bluegill spawn, and I'm probably going to put some brush just between the pea gravel beds and the top of the island, so when the bluegills spawn, all of the baby bluegills can go up there in the brush and survive. But I got a few other key places I want to put it. One of them is right around Clyde's Cove, and then one of these other shallow road beds that we've got built. And then the last thing I'm going to do is save all of the rest of the gravel for the dock area, because we're going to build that next week, and we're also going to put a bluegill feeder on it, so I know we're always going to have a lot of bluegill in that area. I think sitting down here in the deep end you can definitely see the depth changes a little bit better. But now we're about to work on a couple of new structure projects. One of them I call the trough and the other one I call the dugout. Alright folks, just got the trough installed out here. Now my vision with this is to pile a bunch of brush in there. We may get 1 or 2 of the long oak limbs and put it long ways, maybe making like an X or something, but I want to put a ton of brush in here and attract a lot of bait. And the thing I really liked about this one, it still has big enough holes to where the fish can swim through it and get to that bait. I'll put cinder blocks around the outside of it, and it's a good anchor point for a lot of brush piles that's going to bring the bait in, and it'll basically be like a shad buffet. Alright, now next project, the dugout. So you got this entire pond, and the only shade, since we don't have any trees around it, is going to be the pier. So I'm going to create an underwater fish dugout to where they can swim up under a platform and get a little shade, because this Alabama sun is a little hot. Alright, we got it complete. Now we're just going to anchor the bottom of the post with some cinder blocks. I call it the dugout, he calls it the shade shack. Either way, it's fine for me. It definitely provides them some shade. Alright, he just came up with a better idea. Rather than tying it off with rope, we're just going to pick the bottom of that post up, set it down into cinder block, and fill it with concrete. And that should hold it down. Definitely a better idea. Going to come back with concrete, fill both of those up, and then come in with structure. But the whole purpose for the dugout right there is creating that shade. Now one of the last things we're going to do is spread some grass seed, and we're going to use the bulldozer tracks to bury the seed just below the surface. And hopefully the grass will germinate before we get one of those big tropical storms coming through. Alright, that's a wrap on the circle wood pile. I tried to get plenty of brush in there to where the bait could get in there and hide. So I was taking a look at our new grass seed on the dam, and check this out. We had an old tree that had died that just fell over right here on the pond dam. You can tell it was dead because it didn't have any leaves on it. But you know what we got to do with that. Now we got to take that and drag it right off into the pond. Now let's check out some of the game camera footage, because I've noticed some very strange activity going on lately. So it's almost like the bucks get really excited when they come around the soybeans and they just start bouncing around. And I've heard that coffee was discovered by a goat farmer, because whenever the goats would eat the coffee beans, they'd get excited and start bouncing, and so that led them to looking into a coffee bean. But so I don't know why they get so excited about these soybeans, but there's definitely something going on here over the past couple of weeks that I can't explain. I don't know, maybe you guys have seen that in the past. And the bobcat coming through to check everything out. Well, as much as I hate to say it, it looks like it's all coming to an end. They're officially loading up all of the heavy equipment and headed back home. These guys are based just outside of Montgomery, and their company's name is American Sports Fish Hatchery. If you guys are looking to build a pond or have your pond stocked with bait or bass, give them a call. I'll put a link down in the video description. They've done an excellent job with building my pond. So we still have a couple more structure projects that you'll be seeing next week. I still have to get all of the brush and the non-hardwood trees in the pond and put them in places like that trough. We also have a big tunnel project you'll see us build in the next video. But guys, that is going to wrap this one up. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we're going to be installing an underground well and putting water in this pond next week. But I hope y'all enjoyed this video, and we will see you all next time.